Hello. You're about ready to watch an interview I did with a young homesteader on the second day of the Okie Homestead Expo. And once you get into the interview, you'll understand why we're talking to him. And if you don't make it all the way through the interview, I ask that you fast forward to the end of the video because I got a call to action and I think it's important. So please just check it out, okay? Hey everybody, welcome back to Grumpy Acres. Hey, listen, we are at the Okie Homestead Expo in Pryor, Oklahoma, and they're giving all kinds of stuff about homesteading here, and we're hearing a whole bunch of great stories. And I met a young couple yesterday, Joseph and his wife and their kids, and they were telling us how they are brand new homesteaders. And so Joseph, you want to tell us about your homestead and what you got going on and how long you've been at it?
So we've been going actually not even a year, just for a few months. We moved back to Oklahoma after getting out of the military. Decided we wanted to get into homesteading. Our house sits on a small, like 3, almost 4 acre property. We've started gardening. We got about 30-something chickens.
Nice.
Working our way to getting some goats and just keep building from there.
Homeschooling the kids?
Homeschooling. We've homeschooled since our oldest was born.
Okay. Well, you know, the story of you guys homesteading is kind of, there's a lot of homesteaders here, and there's a lot of new homesteaders here. We're kind of hearing a lot of the same things, but there's something different about your story than everybody else I've talked to, and it's not necessarily the homestead aspect of it. It's why you are homesteading now and the way you're doing it, or why you're doing it. You want to talk about that?
So, I attended serving my country during the time when lockdowns all happened. Mandates started coming out, and I ended up being one of about approximately 160,000 service members in the military that said no to the mandate. Once all of us started saying no to the mandate, we put in what was called accommodation requests to be approved. A lot of stuff was denied. Leadership was tearing all of us down to try to coerce to receiving and accompanying the mandate. Basically, words being used of you failed your country, you failed the American people, you failed being a soldier.
See, and now you understand why I've got Joshua here in front of the camera talking to you guys, because his story hits really close to home with me, because I did not have to go through nearly as much hassle as he went through, but I am sitting here in front of you as a homesteader, in where we are because of the same exact reason. And the one of the things that struck me, actually there's a couple of things that struck me about Joseph's story. And the first one was how much, I'm going to say courage, it took to make this decision, because they really, the Army really turned on you, didn't it?
Yes.
And it wasn't just higher ups, it was people all the way down the command chain that turned on you. Tell everybody a little bit about some of the things that happened to you, if you don't mind.
So, my platoon sergeant was my senior drill sergeant in basic training, where I attended for 6 months of training and learning my MOS. And
you were an MP, right?
I was a military police officer. So I had to attend what was called one station unit training. I went through basic training and then stayed in the exact same area, doing AIT, learning my job. When I got the opportunity that my senior drill sergeant became my platoon sergeant back at the duty station I was at, I was really pumped, excited. I looked up to him. When the mandate started coming down, he was like, stand your ground, say no, and all that. Once his position was threatened because he hadn't followed the order, he over the weekend went and complied to the order, and then just said, that Monday just said, hey, just go get it. Just go get it.
So it was people that you trusted.
People that I trusted to lead me into combat and bring me back home to my family safe and alive, that I trusted my whole life. And just to turn and say, you're not doing this. You're a failure to your country. You failed being a soldier. You're this, you're that. You're basically worthless to the military, to everybody. And for them to hear that every single day. And at some point, it got so hard on me that I almost said, maybe it's not worth continuing this stance, just go get it, until I received a box in the mail, and it was drawings and letters from kids and people that I don't even know, telling me, thank you for what you're doing, you're the true hero to this country. And that actually...
And you still don't know where it came from?
I still don't know where it came from. It's just a random box that was filled with drawings, artwork, and everything of telling me thank you. And
that's awesome.
I stood my ground longer to fight, with those kids, those people that I don't even know at all, plus my family encouraging me. Mm-hmm. I fought longer, but I ended up hitting a certain point when my request was denied because of my religion. And the letter literally stated, after reviewing your religion, I've decided to deny your request. And that was from the man that's literally the highest ranking person up in the Pentagon.
So you were talking about how you continued to stand your ground. Mm-hmm. And the longer you stood your ground, the more toxic the leadership became, and the more coercion that they put on you, and the more things they tried to do to make it completely unbearable for you.
They basically felt like they made you feel like you were nothing. You were nobody. Basically, it wasn't just my MOS. It was all MOSs. Me as a police officer, when I was still patrolling on shifts. Mm-hmm. Once all that happened, I wouldn't go without a day where, and this is hard to talk about.
It's okay if you don't want to.
8 to 12 attempted or successful suicide calls.
And it was bad enough before the mandates.
It was bad enough before the mandates because it was just it's the military,
right.
But the leadership got so bad that, there was a commander that wasn't complying with the order. He was, one of us. Mm-hmm. He couldn't take it no more. And he actually went into his office and took his own life.
That's terrible. And that's, that you hear the 22 a day thing, and that's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why it's such an epidemic in the military now. Now, you were telling me a story about how you had a group of guys that you all were really good friends, and you all decided to take a stand together.
Yes.
And you told the story about what happened as each one of you separated from the group, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And there was one guy left after you left. You want to tell that story about the group and then what happened after? And don't mention any names because I don't want to call anybody out. I don't want.
So my best friend, we were all pretty much friends, and we basically decided that this ain't legal, this ain't right. Mm-hmm. We all knew that when we took our oath and we signed the paperwork, nowhere stated that we lose our religious rights, we lose our constitutional rights, where we say I don't want this in my body.
Right. Well, at least the Army pretended to pay attention to the religious accommodations, because the Navy just said no.
Yeah.
So at least the Army pretended. We gotta give credit where credit's due, at least.
Right.
Okay, go on with the story.
So we all stood. we stood next to each other. We stood strong. I mean, we created a big, strong group. It was actually a very thick chain that, the toxic leadership had no chance of breaking. Some of us had accommodations put in, and some were just flat out saying, I'm not doing it. So it was all good. It was strong. We were fighting it tooth and nail. Especially after, a lot of us went to our own pastors, priests, whatever, asking for help. And we were getting told, those people you go to every Sunday, we're telling you no. And that where you stand thinking that these are the one people you should be able to come to for help.
Right.
And so other than our family members, back at home backing us up, we had each other.
Okay.
As people started, being separated, we stayed strong. And the moment I got separated, there was only one person left. And he was my best friend. And I prepared him to try to, keep fighting, keep saying no.
Give him encouragement.
And
that's what battle buddies do, right?
And I told him that, I might be living in a completely different state, but if it anytime it gets hard, call me. I don't care what time of the day, night, call me. And I ended up finding out that he got promoted to sergeant, which, very proud of him. Promotion's always a big thing. He never really told me, but the fact is that if you said no to the mandate, you weren't promoted.
Yep.
We weren't even really getting leave approved. We weren't even allowed to leave the base. We were basically imprisoned because we said no to the mandate.
So were you a sergeant or were you part of the E4 Mafia?
I was a specialist.
Specialist, okay. That's an honorary.
And he was a specialist. And then, so I was proud of him, but we eventually got leave approved. It was always a fight.
Right. Well, so on our channel, I'm always talking about how building community is very important. And
Right.
and in the military, your community are the guys you serve with. And Josh's story is a prime example of what I'm constantly talking about, how standing alone we're easily broken, and as a community or as a group, we can stand stronger and we can make these decisions. So if you ever, when you hear me say this has real world applications. This isn't just some theoretical moral issue. This is real world applications, and you can see it in action right here. So the next thing I wanted to ask you about, so the army wasn't budging. So your wife was telling me that you guys wrote a bunch of letters, hoping that your representatives and congresspeople. How'd that turn out?
So there was there's a group that was formed on Facebook. There's basically people from all branches of the military.
All right.
Back each other up, fight and stand your ground. Well, it ended up popping up like, we need to write letters to our Congress.
Okay.
These are...
Because we're told that works, right?
Yeah, we're told that these are the individuals that support, when they're campaigning and everything, they talk about how they support the military, support service members' families. You expect that you should be able to come to them for help. Well, there's one particular senator, he's part of the Armed Forces Committee.
I'll say his name. Tell him who it is. If you don't want to, I'll
Senator Inhofe. He's part of the Armed Forces Committee. This committee is supposed to be people that help service members and their families with anything.
And he's your representative.
And he's our representative. My wife wrote him, my father-in-law wrote him, and his response back to it was, he just needs to go get it.
Unbelievable. Okay, so the next thing, we were talking about the toxic leadership a little bit earlier, and he was telling me what was going on, folks, and this went way beyond anything I ever saw. And we were talking before we started. You know, if you're in the military, chances are you dealt with toxic leadership at some point. It's just people are people, and it happens, right? But they got vindictive. You had two things happen to you that I had never heard happen to somebody before. One was when you separated about the duty station, what happened at your duty station, and the second one was your DD-214. You want to tell people what happened there?
So when I was in the process of clearing, I ended up getting called to the JAG office. If anybody's familiar, military, JAG is basically the attorneys in the military. And I was told I had to sign a piece of paper. When I read this paper, it was written up from our installation commander. And he basically, it was a bar from the installation I was on. I still have access to every installation in the entire U.S., but the base I was on, because it stated that I was a danger and a threat to other service members and civilians on the base.
Now, this is all relatively recent, too. We're not talking years back.
No.
This is all within the last 6 months, right?
Yes.
So this is all still pretty new. And before you separated, you were still on duty.
I was still patrolling. I was still conducting PT. I was still pulling staff duties.
Interacting with the civilian population
and everything.
So he was a danger and a threat to the service members and civilians on board this installation. But he was interacting with them every single day. Not unsupervised. Unsupervised is a relative term, right? But yeah, he was out doing his job, and you know, from what I can tell, you were doing it pretty well, or they would have taken you out.
Yeah,
they would have taken you off duty. You know, and so that's like toxic leadership on steroids. And then I did support for uniformed service members, and I had never heard of a DD-214 that was done like his. So what happened to your DD-214?
So, you know, everybody that's served the country knows that if you were separated for anything, the reason for separation was put in codes. So when you go job applying and everything, if it's somebody who's very familiar with the military, very familiar with the codes, they're the only ones that know what that code means. On my DD-214 and everybody else's, instead of coding it, it was a general under honorable reason for discharge, committing a serious offense. In words.
And for anybody that's not military background, DD-214 is the one piece of paper you get that it tells everything you did in the military on one sheet of paper. And you need it for job, when you're getting jobs and people want to see it and all that. And I've never heard of any of them put like that. Plus, you were telling me that had it not been for Congress actually stepping in, it wouldn't even have been other. So you've got the honorable, general, OTH, and then a dishonorable.
Yep.
And had Congress not stepped in, what would your discharge been?
If Congress hadn't stepped in, all of us that said no, we're going to be dishonorably discharged. The reason why Congress stepped in was because they were adding to the dishonorable discharge and saying that service members wouldn't be allowed to vote no more.
So basically, they dodged a bullet. You and those 160-some thousand soldiers and airmen and Marines and sailors dodged a bullet because Congress for once stood up and did something semi-right. They should have stopped it.
And I can't remember the senator's name that initiated the bill. He's a senator down in Texas.
Okay, we'll have to look him up after this. Okay, and so your DD-214 is not normal.
No.
And because it wasn't coded like a normal DD-214, did you have? And you don't have to go into any details if you don't want to, but it created some problems that normally would not have been there otherwise, right?
It was hard for job searching.
Yeah.
Coming back, I see all these jobs that are saying immediate hire. I had to pay out of my pocket to move me and my family down here, back down to home. And I would put in, and I had to attach my DD-214 to that. I have a I had a lieutenant that was in the same company as me, different platoon, and I stand by him everything. He said no to the mandate. He was even willing to lose his next promotion over it, and he wrote me a letter of recommendation and a reprimand that explains that I was not separated for getting in trouble, and that I even submitted all of those on my applications, got interviews, no questions were asked about it, but then kept getting told, no, we're going to move on with somebody else.
And luckily you did find some from what your wife was saying, pretty good employment.
I did finally come across
so yes,
where I was blessed with a really good job.
So yeah, there's some blessing there. But and it just seems like they it's vindictiveness at this point is what it got to. It got to be vindictive. And we did a live a couple of weeks ago, the same week that they lifted the mandate, and I was pretty hot under the collar. I imagine there was times you were pretty mad.
Especially with the moment the mandate's lifted, anybody who hadn't been kicked out, disciplinaries, the same disciplinaries they signed that I have, were just disappeared like nothing ever happened, and they were told, go get your gear reissued to you.
It's crazy.
And the other big problem with it is that you can domestic assault your significant other, and you get separated from the military with a full honorable. You can pose as a federal agent and get separated with a full honorable, but say no to a mandate, and you got a general under honorable committing a serious offense.
And these are all actual things that happen. We're not going to go into the details on, but these are all actual things that happened. And it's just crazy. It's a crazy story, man. I can't believe that they did that to you. And there's so many people. It just completely unnecessary. Okay, so and like I said earlier, the reason why I love your story is because you took a stand. And would you agree with me that seeking liberty and freedom like that is scary? Standing up and saying no is scary.
It's very scary.
Okay, so if you got a chance, this is going to be out on YouTube. You can tell potentially millions of people. If you were to give them advice on taking a stand and saying no, I mean, what would the one piece of advice be to them?
Know in your heart and your mind that this is what you want. You don't want something. Prepare yourself that whether it's it's a civilian side and management treating you bad, if you are military or any kind of where you got leadership above you, they're going to come down on you. But create that community of people who have the same mindsets, the same stance.
Like-minded people.
Build that wall. Have your family. Your family is a strong backbone that's going to support you.
Okay, now here's the next question. Now that you've been through this, if you're faced with another tough decision like this, and hopefully we won't. Hopefully neither one of us will have to face any type of decision like this. If you're faced with another decision like this, is it going to be easier for you now that you know what it's going to be like? Is it going to be easier or harder to take a stand and say no?
Honestly, after actually going through it and fighting it, if it's anything that comes up, it says you're going to do this regardless, and I know it's unethical, immoral, illegal. The answer is no.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about it. It's no, and I almost don't care what they throw.
Seems like no is a learned thought, a learned action, and the more you do it, the more you exercise it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
That's why you never let your kids tell you no. Speaking of your kids, so let's go back. Let's go back and so providentially your in-laws had a place to help you, and they helped you out, right? Was it your in-laws?
Yes.
It was your in-laws, but that almost didn't happen either. That house almost got sold out and before you even knew you needed it, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just apparently randomly, your mother-in-law was like, "Hey, we we don't need to sell this house. Let's keep it. And then 6 months later, her daughter and her grandchildren and her son-in-law are living in the house, becoming homesteaders, and
Yes.
living starting the journey for a life done free.
Yes.
Absolutely. So there's providentiality in it too, man. God works in the mysterious ways, and He did that in ours, and we were talking about it, and you know. So you've got your kids, and you're homeschooling them, teaching them how to live free, and you're changing generations. You're raising up a next generation of freedom fighters. Congratulations, man. All right. So you got any last words before we sign off? Anything you want us to tell people? Go hook 'em horns.
Don't be scared to say no. Don't let somebody tell you you have no choice.
Absolutely.
Because you do.
Absolutely. Hey, and like we always say when we sign off at Grumpy Acres, go live a life done free. Take care. All right. Awesome. That was a good interview, man. You did a good job. Thanks for making it this far into the video. You know, what you couldn't see in that interview was the day before, whenever we first met, Joseph was very, very pent up, very, I don't want to say close, but you could tell there was something going on there. And we did that interview, and then we went over to our booth and started talking some more, and I introduced him to some people, and they talked, and we talked for a good 30, 45 minutes, and you could see as he was talking with people, and as he did the interview, you kind of see it in the interview too, but not as much as afterwards. He started unburdening himself, and he stopped carrying whatever it was he's carrying around because of this incident, and it literally seemed like he was unburdened. And you know, for every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine like Joseph that was kicked out, he said that there are 4 or 5 more that weren't kicked out, but they didn't re-enlist because they saw what happened to their brothers and sisters. Our military members are hurting because of this. They've been treated unjustly, and they've been treated in a manner that's not becoming of the leadership of our military. The young men and women of our military do not deserve the type of leadership that they're getting. So here's my call to action. These guys need their stories heard. There are more guys out there like Joseph that need to unburden themselves. They need to tell their stories. We need to help them get the message out. If you know anybody that can help spread the message, get this video to them. Tell them about what's going on. It's really kind of funny because Mike Glover just released a video 2 days before this one on the very same topic. So it's coming to a head. More and more people are seeing the problem, and we need to get it out there, and we need to help these guys, okay? Go help them and live a life done free. Semper Fi, y'all. Thanks, Milo.